You're nothing. The words hit me like ice water as I stood in our bedroom doorway. My wedding dress pristine and perfect, the veil I'd spent months choosing cascading down my back like spun moonlight. I'd been about to ask David if he could help with the tiny buttons at the base of my spine, the ones I couldn't quite reach, when his voice stopped me cold. He was sitting on the edge of our bed, still in his boxers and undershirt, staring at his phone with the kind of focused intensity he usually reserved for work emails. He hadn't even looked up when I'd entered the room. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "You're nothing," he repeated, still not looking at me. "Nothing special, nothing unique, nothing that can't be replaced." For a moment I thought he was talking to someone on the phone, having some kind of business conversation that had nothing to do with me. But his phone was silent and we were alone in the room, and the words were clearly directed at the woman standing before him in a $3,000 wedding dress. "David, what are you talking about?" Finally, he looked up. His eyes were cold, distant, like he was looking through me rather than at me. "I'm talking about reality, Elena. I'm talking about the fact that you think putting on a white dress makes you special, makes you important, makes you something more than what you actually are." Which is what, exactly? Ordinary, replaceable, a placeholder until something better comes along. The words landed like physical blows, each one more devastating than the last. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, my engagement ring catching the morning light and throwing tiny rainbows across the wall, a mockery of beauty in a moment that felt like death. "David, it's our wedding day. I know what day it is." "Then why are you saying these things?" "Because someone needs to. Because you've been walking around for months acting like you're some kind of princess. Like this wedding is some fairy tale where you get to be the star." I stared at him, this man I'd been with for 3 years. This man I'd thought I loved. This man I was supposed to marry in 4 hours. He looked like David's same dark hair, same sharp jawline, same expensive cologne, but the words coming out of his mouth belonged to a stranger. "I don't understand what's happening right now. What's happening is that I'm telling you the truth. What's happening is that I'm tired of pretending you're something special when you're not." "Why would you say that? Why today?" David stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where our guests would soon be gathering, where we were supposed to exchange vows about loving and cherishing each other forever. "Because I can't do this anymore. Elena, I can't stand at that altar and promise to love and honor someone who's so completely ordinary that she thinks a wedding dress makes her extraordinary. I never said the dress made me. You didn't have to say it. I can see it in the way you've been acting. Like this is your moment, your day to shine, your chance to be the center of attention. It's our wedding day. Of course it's important to me. It's a party, Elena. It's an expensive party where you get to play dress up and pretend you're a princess for a day. But when it's over, you'll still be exactly what you were before nothing." I felt something crack inside my chest. Something that had been holding me together for 3 years, suddenly giving way under the weight of his cruelty. "David, I don't know why you're doing this, but we have guests arriving in 3 hours. We have a ceremony to cancel it." "What?" "Cancel the wedding. Call it off. Tell everyone to go home. I'm not canceling our wedding because you're having some kind of panic attack. This isn't a panic attack. This is clarity. This is me finally admitting that I don't want to marry someone so fundamentally unremarkable that she thinks a white dress and some flowers make her special." I looked at him standing by the window, silhouetted against the morning light, and realized I was looking at a stranger, not because he'd changed, but because I'd never really seen him before. I'd been so busy being grateful that someone like David, successful, handsome, confident, had chosen someone like me, that I'd never stopped to ask whether he actually valued me. "Fine," I said quietly. "Fine what?" "Fine, I'll cancel the wedding." David turned from the window, and for the first time that morning he looked surprised. "You will?" "I will. Because you're right about one thing. I deserve better than marrying someone who thinks I'm nothing." "Elena, that's exactly what you said. Twice. You said I'm nothing. Nothing special, nothing that can't be replaced. I was just trying to..." "You were trying to, what? Hurt me? Humiliate me? Make sure I knew exactly how little you think of me before we legally bound ourselves together." David's expression shifted, and I could see him realizing that his cruel words had had consequences he hadn't anticipated. "Elena, I think we should talk about this. We're talking about this, and what I'm hearing is that you think so little of me that you can't imagine why anyone would want to marry me. That's not true, isn't it?" Then why did you just spend 5 minutes telling me I'm ordinary and replaceable? Because I was. But I was like, I'm nervous about the wedding, and you decided to take it out on me. You decided to make sure I felt as small as possible on what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. I walked to the closet and pulled out a black dress. Simple, elegant, appropriate for the conversation I was about to have with 300 guests. What are you doing? I'm changing clothes. 'Cause you're right, this wedding dress doesn't make me special. But it also doesn't make me nothing. Elena, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being practical. I'm not going to marry someone who thinks I'm nothing. I started unbuttoning the wedding dress, my fingers shaking with adrenaline and something that felt like relief. You know what, David? Thank you. For what? For showing me who you really are before I made the biggest mistake of my life. Elena, you're overreacting. You were just being honest. And I appreciate honesty. It's going to save us both a lot of time and money. The wedding dress pooled at my feet like spilled milk, and I stepped out of it carefully, leaving it on the floor like the discarded costume it had always been. I'm going downstairs to call off the wedding, I said, pulling the black dress over my head. You can stay here and think about what you've done. Or you can come down and help me explain to our families why their children aren't getting married today. Elena, wait. I turned back to look at him one more time, this man who just revealed that he thought I was nothing, and felt something settle into place in my chest. Not heartbreak exactly, but clarity. No, David, I'm done waiting. I'm done being grateful for scraps of affection from someone who doesn't even like me, let alone love me. I do love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of having a wife. You love the idea of being married. But you don't love me. And that's okay because I'm starting to realize I don't love you either. What do you mean? I mean, I've been so busy being grateful that you chose me that I never stopped to ask whether I was choosing you. I walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at the wedding dress on the floor. You know what the funny thing is, David? You said I'm nothing when I wore white, but I have a feeling you're going to say the same thing when you see me in black. And I was right. The silence in the bridal suite was deafening after I closed the door behind me. My bridesmaids, my sister Carmen, my best friend Lisa, my college roommate Sarah, were all staring at me with expressions of shock and confusion as I stood before them in a simple black dress instead of the elaborate wedding gown they'd helped me into an hour earlier. Elena? Carmen was the first to speak, her voice careful and uncertain. What happened? Where's your dress? I'm not getting married today. The words hung in the air like smoke, visible and choking and impossible to take back. Lisa's makeup brush clattered to the floor. Sarah's mouth fell open. Carmen just stared at me like I'd announced I was moving to Mars. What do you mean you're not getting married? Lisa asked finally. I mean exactly that. David and I are not getting married today. But the guests are arriving. The flowers are perfect. The cake is. Sarah gestured helplessly around the room, which was filled with all the beautiful details we'd spent months planning. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the chaos this is going to cause, for the money that's been wasted, for the disappointment everyone's going to feel. Elena, what happened? Carmen moved closer to me, her voice gentle but insistent. Did you and David have a fight? Because if it's just cold feet, it's not cold feet. I sat down heavily in the chair where I'd been getting my makeup done, feeling the weight of the decision I'd just made settling into my bones. David told me I'm nothing. He what? He told me I'm nothing. Nothing special, nothing unique, nothing that can't be replaced. The room erupted in a chorus of outrage and disbelief. My bridesmaids had known David for 3 years, had watched our relationship develop, had helped plan this wedding with enthusiasm and joy. They'd never seen this side of him. Elena, he couldn't have meant that, Sarah said. He was probably just nervous. He meant it. He looked me in the eye and told me I was ordinary and replaceable, that I was acting like a princess when I'm really nothing special. On your wedding day? Lisa's voice was sharp with anger. He said this to you on your wedding day? He said it because it's our wedding day. Because seeing me in that dress made him realize he doesn't actually want to marry me. Carmen sat down beside me and took my hand. Elena, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. So I did. I told them about walking into the bedroom in my wedding dress, about David's cold dismissal, about the way he'd looked at me like I was a stranger he didn't particularly like. I told them about his suggestion that I cancel the wedding, about his casual cruelty disguised as honesty. When I finished, the room was quiet again. But this time the silence felt different, not shocked, but thoughtful. Like my bridesmaids were processing something they'd never noticed before. "Elena," Carmen said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Has David ever said things like this before?" "Maybe not as directly, but ... I thought about the question. Really thought about it. Not exactly like this, but ... yes. He's always had a way of making me feel like I should be grateful he chose me. Like I'm lucky to be with someone like him." "What do you mean?" "He's always been quick to point out when other women are more successful, more beautiful, more accomplished. He's always made comments about how I could improve myself, how I could be better, and you never said anything. I thought he was trying to help me. I thought he wanted me to be the best version of myself." Lisa made a sound of disgust. "Elena, that's not love. That's manipulation. I know that now." "Do you?" Carmen's voice was gentle but insistent. "Because you've been with him for 3 years. You've been planning this wedding for 8 months. You were ready to marry him an hour ago. I was ready to marry the person I thought he was. But the person I thought he was would never have said what he said to me this morning." "Maybe the person you thought he was never existed," Sarah said quietly. The words hit me like a revelation. Maybe she was right. Maybe. I'd been so grateful to be chosen by someone like David that I'd created a version of him that didn't actually exist. Maybe I'd been in love with my own projection rather than the real man. "What are you going to do now?" Lisa asked. "Now I'm going to go downstairs and tell 300 people that there isn't going to be a wedding today." "Elena, are you sure? Maybe you should take some time to think about this. Maybe you and David should talk." "We did talk. He told me I'm nothing, and I realized he's right." "What do you mean he's right? I mean, I am nothing. To him, I'm nothing to him, and I've been nothing to him for 3 years. I've just been too grateful to notice." Carmen squeezed my hand. "Elena, you're not nothing. You're extraordinary. You're kind and intelligent and funny and beautiful. If David can't see that, then he doesn't deserve you. I know. That's why I'm not marrying him. But are you sure you want to do this now? In front of everyone?" "I'm sure. Because if I don't do it now, if I let this moment pass, I'll talk myself out of it. I'll convince myself that what he said wasn't that bad, that I was overreacting, that I should be grateful for whatever love he's willing to give me. And you don't want to do that? I can't do that. Not anymore. I can't spend the rest of my life being grateful for crumbs from someone who thinks I'm ordinary." I stood up and walked to the mirror, looking at myself in the black dress. I looked different than I had in the wedding gown. Not like a bride, but like a woman. A woman who'd just made the hardest decision of her life and was somehow still standing. "How do I look?" I asked. "Like someone who knows her worth," Carmen said. "Good, because I'm about to find out if that's true." There was a knock on the door and my mother's voice called out, "Elena, sweetheart? The photographer wants to take some pictures before the ceremony." I looked at my bridesmaids. These women who'd supported me through 3 years of a relationship that had slowly been eroding my sense of self, and realized they were about to support me through something much harder. "Are you ready?" I asked them. "Are you?" Lisa asked back. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." I opened the door to find my mother standing in the hallway, radiant in her mother of the bride dress, her face glowing with excitement and pride. "Oh, Elena," she said, then stopped. "Why are you wearing black?" "'Cause there isn't going to be a wedding today, Mom." My mother's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, alarm, and finally, something that looked like understanding. "What happened?" "David told me I'm nothing, and I realized he's right. I am nothing to him. And that's not enough for me anymore." My mother was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her processing this information, trying to understand how her daughter's wedding day had turned into this. "What do you need from me?" she asked finally. "I need you to help me tell everyone that the wedding is off. I need you to help me face 300 people and explain why their Saturday afternoon just got ruined." "Elena, are you absolutely certain about this?" "I'm certain that I can't marry someone who thinks I'm nothing. I'm certain that I deserve better than that. Everything else, I'll figure out as I go." My mother nodded slowly, and I could see her shifting into crisis management mode, the same way she'd handled every family emergency for the past 30 years. "Okay," she said, "let's go downstairs and handle this together." As we walked down the hallway toward the main staircase, I could hear the sounds of a wedding in progress, guests arriving, musicians tuning their instruments, caterers making final preparations, all of it about to be for nothing. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was walking towards something instead of away from it. even if I had no idea what that something was. The main salon of the country club was filled with guests in their wedding finery, champagne glasses in hand, faces bright with anticipation. I stood at the top of the staircase in my black dress, watching them mingle and laugh and celebrate what they thought was going to be the happiest day of my life. My mother had gone ahead to find the wedding coordinator and my father, to begin the process of damage control that would be necessary once I made my announcement. My bridesmaids flanked me like a protective guard, their own faces pale but determined. "Elena," Carmen said quietly, "before you do this, I need to tell you something." "What?" "We've been worried about you. For months. Maybe longer." I turned to look at her, surprised. "Worried about what?" "About David. About how he treats you. About how you've been. Diminishing yourself to make him comfortable." "What do you mean?" Lisa stepped forward. "Elena, you used to be so confident, so sure of yourself. But over the past year, you've become smaller, quieter, like you're afraid to take up space." "I haven't." "You have," Sarah said gently. "You stopped expressing opinions that might conflict with his. You stopped talking about your own dreams and goals. You started deferring to him on everything, even things that should have been your choice." I stared at them, these women who'd known me for years, who'd watched me change without my even realizing it. "Why didn't you say anything?" "We tried," Carmen said. "Remember when I asked if you were happy? Remember when Lisa suggested you might want to slow down the wedding planning? Remember when Sarah asked if David was supportive of your career?" I did remember. I remembered dismissing their concerns, making excuses for David's behavior, insisting that everything was fine even when it clearly wasn't. "You were so determined to make this relationship work," Lisa continued. "So convinced that David was the best you could do. We didn't know how to tell you that you deserved better without sounding like we were jealous or unsupportive. But you weren't unsupportive. You helped plan this wedding. You threw me a bachelorette party. We supported you because we love you," Sarah said. "But we've been hoping you'd realize on your own that this wasn't right. And now I have. Now you have." I looked down at the guests below. All these people who'd come to celebrate my marriage to a man who thought I was nothing, and wondered how many of them had seen what my bridesmaids had seen. How many of them had watched me shrink myself to fit into David's life and said nothing. "Elena?" My father appeared at the bottom of the staircase, his face creased with concern. "Your mother told me what happened. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Dad. Better than fine, actually. Do you want to talk about this privately before you make any announcements?" "No, I want to get this over with." My father nodded and gestured to the wedding coordinator, who approached with a microphone and a look of barely controlled panic. "Miss Rodriguez," she said, "your mother explained the situation. How would you like to handle this?" "I'd like to address the guests directly. Tell them the truth. Are you sure?" "We could simply announce that the ceremony has been postponed due to unforeseen circumstances." "No. These people took time out of their lives to be here for me. They deserve honesty." The coordinator nodded and handed me the microphone. As she moved to get the guests' attention, I caught sight of David's family clustered near the bar. His mother looked radiant in her navy blue dress. His father was laughing at something his brother had said. His sister was taking photos of the flower arrangements. They had no idea their son had just destroyed his engagement with casual cruelty. "Ladies and gentlemen," the coordinator announced, "if I could have your attention, please. The bride would like to say a few words." The room quieted, and 300 faces turned toward me. I could see my extended family, David's colleagues, our college friends, all of them expecting a gracious thank you speech before the ceremony began. "Thank you all for being here today," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "I know you came here to celebrate a wedding, and I'm sorry to tell you that there isn't going to be one." A murmur ran through the crowd's surprise. Confusion, concern. I could see David's mother's face go white, could see my grandmother clutch her purse to her chest. "David and I have decided not to get married today. This wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one." "What happened?" Someone called out from the back of the room. I looked toward the voice and saw David's college roommate Mike, who'd flown in from California for the wedding. "What happened is that I realized I was about to marry someone who doesn't actually value me. Someone who thinks I'm ordinary and replaceable and nothing special." The murmur grew louder, and I could see people exchanging glances, trying to process this information. "I know this is disappointing. I know you've traveled and taken time off work and bought gifts to celebrate what you thought was a love story. But it turns out it wasn't a love story at all." "Elena," David's mother approached the base of the staircase, her face stricken. "Surely this is just a misunderstanding. Where's David? Can't you two work this out? Mrs. Patterson, David told me this morning that I'm nothing. That I'm ordinary and replaceable and not worth the effort of pretending to love. There's nothing to work out. He couldn't have said that. That doesn't sound like David. It sounds exactly like David. It sounds like the David I've been living with for 3 years. The David who's been slowly convincing me that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of affection he was willing to give me. I could see David's father pushing through the crowd, his face dark with anger. Where is my son? I want to hear his side of this. Your son is upstairs, probably trying to figure out how to spin this so he doesn't look like the villain. But Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Patterson, I want you to know this isn't about David being a bad person. This is about us being completely wrong for each other. But you seemed so happy, David's sister said, tears in her eyes. You seemed perfect together. We seemed perfect together because I made myself smaller to fit into his life. Because I stopped expressing opinions that might conflict with his. Because I convinced myself that being chosen by someone like David was enough, even if he didn't actually like the person he'd chosen. I looked around the room at all these faces, some sympathetic, some confused, some clearly uncomfortable with this level of honesty. I know this is awkward. I know this isn't what anyone expected from today. But I need you all to understand something. I'm not the victim here. I'm not some poor girl who got her heart broken by a cruel man. I'm a woman who finally realized she deserves better than settling for someone who thinks she's nothing. Elena, my Aunt Maria called out, what are you going to do now? Now I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else wants me to be. I'm going to remember what it feels like to take up space in the world instead of apologizing for existing. And David? Mike asked. David is going to have to figure out what he actually wants in a partner. And hopefully he'll find someone who wants to be ordinary and replaceable, because that person isn't me. I handed the microphone back to the coordinator and started down the staircase. As I reached the bottom, people began approaching me, some to offer comfort, some to ask questions, some just to stare at the woman who'd just called off her own wedding in front of 300 people. But the conversation that surprised me most came from David's grandmother, a tiny woman in her 80s who had always been kind to me but had never said much. Elena, dear, she said, taking my hand in her weathered ones, I need to tell you something. What's that, Mrs. Patterson? David's grandfather, my late husband, used to say things like that to me. Not as directly, but the message was the same. That I was lucky to have him, that I should be grateful for whatever attention he gave me. I'm sorry, that must have been difficult. But do you know what I regret most? What? I regret that I never had the courage to do what you just did. I regret that I spent 43 years married to someone who made me feel small. Mrs. Patterson, you're brave, dear. Braver than I ever was. And you're going to be fine. Better than fine. As she walked away, I felt something settle in my chest. Not relief, exactly, but validation. The knowledge that I'd made the right choice, even if it was the hardest choice I'd ever made. Elena? I turned to find David standing at the edge of the crowd, still in his wedding attire. His face a mixture of anger and something that might have been panic. Hello, David. We need to talk. No, we don't. Elena, you're embarrassing both of us. You're making a scene over something that was just what? Just you telling me I'm nothing? Just you revealing that you think I'm ordinary and replaceable. I was nervous. I said things I didn't mean. No, David. You said things you did mean. You said things you've been thinking for 3 years, but were too polite to say out loud. That's not true. Isn't it? I looked at him, this man I'd thought I loved, this man I'd been willing to spend my life with, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Not because he'd changed, but because I'd finally stopped pretending he was someone he wasn't. David, I want you to know something. What? You were right. I am nothing. To you. And that's okay, because you're nothing to me too. I just didn't realize it until this morning. Elena, that's exactly what this is. We're nothing to each other, we never were. And now we don't have to pretend anymore. I walked away from him then, leaving him standing in the middle of our former wedding reception, surrounded by guests who were beginning to understand that they'd just witnessed something much more significant than a canceled wedding. They'd witnessed a woman choosing herself for the first time in years. 2 hours later, the country club was nearly empty. Most of the guests had left after awkward goodbyes and promises to call later, taking their wedding gifts and their confused sympathy with them. The caterers were packing up untouched hors d'oeuvres. The florist was collecting centerpieces that would never grace a reception dinner. and I was sitting alone at what should have been the head table, still in my black dress, watching the remnants of my almost wedding disappear. Elena? I looked up to see David's brother James approaching, his face serious and slightly embarrassed. James had always been the quieter Patterson brother, the one who observed more than he spoke. And I'd always liked him better than David, though I'd never admitted that to myself before today. "Hi, James. Can I sit?" "Of course." He settled into the chair beside me, loosening his tie and running a hand through his hair. "Elena, I owe you an apology." "For what? For not saying something sooner? For watching my brother treat you like you were disposable and not calling him out on it?" I turned to look at him, surprised. "You noticed?" "Everyone noticed." "Well, everyone except you, apparently." "What do you mean?" James was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Elena, David has always been difficult in relationships. He has very specific ideas about what he wants in a partner, and those ideas don't usually include the partner having much of a personality of their own. How long have you known this about him? Since high school? Maybe longer. He's always been attracted to women who make him feel important, who make him feel like he's doing them a favor by being with them. And you never said anything. What was I supposed to say? Hey, Elena, my brother is emotionally manipulative and you should run? You seemed happy. You seemed to love him. I did love him, or I thought I did. Did you? Or did you love the idea of being chosen by him?" The question hit me like a physical blow, because it was exactly what I'd been wondering myself. Had I actually loved David, or had I just been so grateful to be wanted by someone successful and attractive that I'd convinced myself it was love? "I don't know," I admitted. "I honestly don't know anymore. Elena, can I tell you something about my brother?" "What?" "He's never going to change. This pattern finding women who make him feel superior, slowly eroding their confidence until they're grateful for whatever attention he gives them. This is who he is." "That's a terrible thing to say about your own brother. It's the truth. And the truth is that you just saved yourself from a lifetime of feeling like you're not enough." I looked around the empty ballroom, at the wedding decorations that now seemed like props from a play I'd never wanted to be in. "James, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why didn't anyone try to stop this? Why didn't anyone tell me what they were seeing?" James sighed. "'Cause you didn't want to hear it. Every time someone tried to suggest that maybe David wasn't treating you well, you defended him. You made excuses for his behavior. You insisted everything was fine, because I thought it was fine. I thought that was what love looked like. What did you think love looked like? Gratitude? Compromise? Being willing to change yourself to make someone else happy? And now? Now I think love looks like someone thinking you're extraordinary exactly as you are. Someone who doesn't want you to be smaller or quieter or more agreeable. Someone who doesn't think you're nothing. Elena, you're not nothing. You're brilliant and funny and kind and strong. If David couldn't see that, then he's an idiot. Maybe. Or maybe I just wasn't the right person for him." "No," James said firmly. "David wasn't the right person for you. There's a difference." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the cleanup crew dismantle what should have been my wedding reception. "James? Yeah? What happens now? With your family, I mean. Are they going to hate me for humiliating David in front of everyone?" "My parents are embarrassed, but they're not stupid. They know David well enough to know that you probably didn't make this decision lightly. And David? David is upstairs having what I can only describe as a tantrum. He's furious that you made him look bad in front of everyone. I didn't make him look bad. He made himself look bad by telling his fiancée she was nothing on their wedding day. I know that. You know that. David. David thinks you overreacted. Of course he does. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Okay, are you okay? Really okay? Because what you did today, calling off a wedding in front of 300 people, that takes incredible courage. But it also has to be devastating. I considered the question, taking inventory of my emotions. Was I devastated? Heartbroken? Destroyed by the collapse of my relationship and the public humiliation of a canceled wedding? I'm not devastated, I said finally. I'm relieved. Relieved? Relieved that I don't have to pretend anymore. Relieved that I don't have to spend the rest of my life being grateful for scraps of affection from someone who thinks I'm ordinary. And I'm angry. Really, really angry, not just at David, but at myself, for accepting so little for so long, for being so afraid of being alone that I convinced myself that being with someone who didn't value me was better than being with no one at all. Anger can be useful. How? It can motivate you to build something better. It can remind you that you deserve more than what you were settling for. I looked at James, this man who'd watched his brother slowly diminish me for 3 years and had finally found the courage to speak up. James, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Are you married? Divorced? 2 years ago? What happened? I married someone who thought I was nothing. It took me 5 years to realize that her opinion of me said more about her than it did about me. And now I'm dating someone who thinks I'm extraordinary. Someone who likes me better when I'm completely myself, not when I'm trying to be what she wants me to be. How did you find her? I stopped looking for someone who would be grateful to have me and started looking for someone I would be grateful to have. The words settled into my chest like a revelation. For 3 years, I'd been so focused on being worthy of David's love that I'd never stopped to ask whether he was worthy of mine. Elena, James said, standing up and extending his hand, would you like to get out of here? Maybe grab some coffee and talk about what comes next. What comes next? Whatever you want to come next. That's the beautiful thing about starting over. You get to decide who you want to be. I took his hand and let him help me up, feeling the weight of my decisions settling into my bones. I had just called off my wedding, humiliated myself in front of 300 people, and destroyed a 3-year relationship in the span of 4 hours. But for the first time in years, I felt like myself. James? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For telling me the truth. For reminding me that I'm not nothing. Elena, you were never nothing. You just forgot for a while. As we walked out of the empty ballroom together, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall by the exit. The woman looking back at me was wearing a black dress instead of a wedding gown, but she looked more like a bride than I'd ever looked in white. She looked like someone who was marrying herself. 1 year later, I was standing in front of another mirror, but this time I was in my own apartment, the 1-bedroom in Brooklyn I'd rented 3 months after the non-wedding. The first place that had ever been entirely mine. I was getting ready for a date, but not the kind of date I would have gone on when I was with David. This was a date with someone who'd seen me at my messiest, most complicated, most authentically myself, and had asked me out anyway. My phone buzzed with a text from Carmen. How are you feeling about tonight? I typed back, nervous, excited, like myself. Perfect. Have fun. You deserve this. This Carmen was referring to wasn't just the date. It was the entire life I've built over the past year, the new job at a nonprofit that actually used my skills, the writing class I'd started taking, the friends I'd made who liked me for my opinions rather than despite them, the therapy that had helped me understand how I'd lost myself in the first place. But mostly, it was the relationship with myself that I'd been building. The slow process of remembering who I was when I wasn't trying to be what someone else wanted. The doorbell rang, and I felt a flutter of anticipation that had nothing to do with gratitude or desperation or the relief of being chosen. It was the simple excitement of spending time with someone I genuinely liked, someone who genuinely liked me back. I opened the door to find Marcus standing there with flowers, not the expensive, showy arrangement David would have chosen, but a simple bouquet of wildflowers that looked like they'd been picked from a field. Hi, he said, his smile warm and slightly nervous. Hi. Marcus was a teacher at the school where I'd started volunteering. A man who'd noticed me not because I was blonde and agreeable, but because I'd gotten into a passionate argument with another volunteer about education policy. He'd approached me afterward not to tell me I was wrong, but to say he'd never heard anyone articulate the problems with standardized testing so clearly. You look beautiful, he said, and I could tell he meant it. Thank you. You look pretty good yourself. We'd been friends for 6 months before either of us had acknowledged that there was something more between us. 6 months of conversations about books and politics and dreams for the future. 6 months of me being completely myself without apology or explanation. 6 months of him seeming to like me more the more he got to know me. Ready? He asked. Ready. We walked to the restaurant, a small Italian place in the neighborhood that Marcus had chosen, because he remembered me mentioning that I loved authentic pasta. Not because it was the kind of place that would impress me with its expense or exclusivity. Over dinner, we talked about everything and nothing. His students, my writing, the book we'd both been reading, the documentary we wanted to see together. It was easy conversation, the kind that flowed naturally between two people who were genuinely interested in each other's thoughts and feelings. Elena, Marcus said as we were sharing tiramisu. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? I mean, really happy, not just okay or getting by, but actually happy? I considered the question, thinking about the woman I'd been a year ago. Grateful, diminished, convinced that being chosen was the same as being loved. I'm happy, I said. I'm happier than I've ever been, even though you're not married, even though your life didn't go according to plan, especially because my life didn't go according to plan. Because the plan I had was someone else's plan for me, not my own. What's your plan now? To keep being myself, to keep growing, to keep building relationships with people who like me for who I am, not who they want me to be. And us, what's the plan for us? I looked at this man who'd spent 6 months getting to know me before asking me out, who'd never once suggested I should be different or better or more grateful for his attention. The plan for us is to see what happens when two people who actually like each other try to build something together. I like that plan. Me too. After dinner, we walked through the neighborhood, talking and laughing and enjoying the kind of easy companionship I'd never experienced with David. When we reached my building, Marcus walked me to the door but didn't assume he was invited up. I had a wonderful time tonight, he said. So did I. Can I see you again? I'd like that very much. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of possibility. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a beginning rather than a conquest, like an invitation rather than a claim. Elena? Yes? I think you're extraordinary, even though I'm complicated and opinionated and sometimes difficult. Especially because you're complicated and opinionated and sometimes difficult. After he left, I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea and thought about the journey that had brought me here. A year ago, I'd been standing in a wedding dress being told I was nothing. Tonight, I'd been sitting across from someone who thought I was everything. But the real transformation wasn't about Marcus, or even about David. It was about me learning to see myself clearly, to value my own complexity, to understand that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who made me feel small. My phone rang and I saw David's name on the screen. I'd blocked his number months ago, but he'd apparently gotten a new phone. I stared at it for a moment, then answered. Hello, David. Elena. I wanted to call and see how you're doing. I'm doing very well, thank you. I heard you're seeing someone. I am. Are you happy? Very happy. There was a long pause, and I could hear David struggling with something he wanted to say. Elena, I need to tell you something. What's that? I was wrong. About what I said to you that day. You're not nothing. You're actually pretty extraordinary. Thank you for saying that. Do you think there's any chance we could try again? I've been thinking about you, about us, and I realize I made a mistake. I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built for myself, at the woman I'd become when I stopped trying to be what someone else wanted. David, I appreciate the apology. But no, there's no chance we could try again. Why not? Because you were right the first time. I am nothing to you, and you're nothing to me. And that's okay because we're both everything to the right people. Elena, David. I hope you find someone who wants to be ordinary and replaceable because that person isn't me. And I hope you learn to value complexity over compliance. Because the women who challenge you are the ones worth keeping. What if I've already learned that? Then you'll do better with the next person. But that person isn't going to be me. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and felt the deep satisfaction of a woman who knew her worth. David's apology didn't change anything, didn't heal anything, didn't make me want him back. It was just confirmation that I'd made the right choice a year ago. I thought about the woman I'd been in that wedding dress, so desperate to be chosen that she'd forgotten to choose herself. That woman felt like a character I'd played in a movie, someone I'd inhabited but never really been. The woman sitting in this apartment was different. She was complicated and opinionated and sometimes difficult, and she was loved for those qualities, not despite them. She was everything to the right person and nothing to the wrong ones, and she finally understood the difference. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Thank you for a perfect evening. Sweet dreams. Typed back. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being worth seeing. I smiled, feeling the truth of those words settle into my bones. I was worth seeing, I was worth knowing. I was worth loving exactly as I was. A year ago, I'd been nothing in a white dress. Tonight, I was everything in my own skin.